Hello friends, and welcome to the first full episode of Essential Racing Strategies. Break out your pencils and get them sharpened. It's class time. In case you're new to this, what is Essential Racing Strategies? It's a video series dedicated to helping other racers improve their ability to race against other drivers in Gran Turismo 7 Sport Mode. Also, if you're new to this series and haven't seen the first introductory video, I do encourage you to check out that introductory video in the description, as it sets the tone for the entire series and everything we're going to cover. And if you aren't a subscriber to the channel, please become one. That way you can track with this video series along with all the videos, live streams, and shorts that we put together on a regular basis. Many of you have expressed your interest and joy over finding this series, and I really am overwhelmed by the great reception that it has received so far. So why Essential Racing Strategies? Why this video series? It has been documented that the smallest percentage of GT7 Sport Mode drivers are A and A+ rated. I want to play a part in helping many of you get to the next level. If you're ranked C, I want to see you get to B. If you are B, let's see you get to A. And if you are A rated, let's get you over the hump and over to A+. On this episode, we start especially for those of you who are rated E through C. But as I've mentioned before in the introductory video, if you are ranked higher than this already, stay with me, as all of these strategies are cumulative in nature. You, over the course of time and many races, you could have picked up some not so great habits, or even be unaware of something that is hindering some better results for you. So I'm confident that even these first 3 episodes will be helpful to many of you who are A-rated and below. There will be 3 episodes initially dedicated to E through C rated drivers. First, we look at your weekly objectives and talk about finding a routine along with some details that could help in a major way. Second, we will talk about what you should prioritize as a racer, as there are many things that could steal your focus from what is absolutely necessary. And lastly, we will look into the mindset of racers should have, especially for E through C rated drivers. You'll find that some of these strategies will carry over into higher rated lobbies, but some things will change as the lobbies get faster and the skill level of all on the track gets higher. I also anticipate the need to add more videos in the future. And if there's something that you'd like specifically to see that we haven't covered or won't cover in the future, let me know in the comments, and I will take serious ideas into consideration. As I've mentioned before, much of the content you will find in Essential Racing Strategies has been born out of comments that I've read on others' videos, along with my own journey through the rating system all the way to A+. So without any more delay, let's dive into today's strategies. So we're talking about, in this first episode, your weekly objectives. What do I mean by that? Well, it's the type of routine that you should have going into each week. As many of you know already, on Mondays we get a new set of daily races. And what is your approach? What should the approach be at this point? Well, I would like to suggest and submit that developing a routine is key to success in sport mode. The races change every week, so come Monday, what do? Do you have a plan? If you do, has it produced consistent results for you? Or do you find that your weekly outcomes are very up and down? While some of what I will propose here I am confident is crucial and really cannot be ignored, feel free to take these strategies and modify them to your liking. The essential strategies that I'm proposing today are a guide for you to either do exactly as I have suggested, or if you have things in place that you already do, to mold these into your routine that you already have in place. And if you don't have a routine at all, then I highly advise implementing this and then perhaps altering elements as you go along. Much of what we are covering today are things that I myself used, or in some cases, strategies that I wish I had started doing a lot earlier in GT7 Sport Mode. First thing we want to cover is that qualifying time and race pace are, in fact, secondary. Secondary in priority. But this is what we will cover first, because this is how you're going to end up starting your week. So at this level specifically, what is the best approach when it comes to putting in a qualifying time? Setting a qualifying time should include working on the best lap that you can do, but I would suggest that you don't do it for any more than 30 minutes to start out. Why no more than that? You should not stress too much about your qualifying time in the beginning. Devote that much time, and you can certainly have some practice sessions to yourself as the week goes on. It is important, though, to get on track and get the feel for the race. I am of the philosophy that the best way to improve your racing ability is to get out there and race with others. As you're practicing your qualifying time and qualifying laps, try to get between 5 and 7 seconds off the top time in the world. Do the best laps that you can. If you are hovering in the 5 to 7 seconds off the top times in the world, you are probably in the right arena for a 2-minute lap, let's say. If you believe you can do better than that, by all means, go for it. If you can do better than that, you'll probably be sitting pole in most races if you can get under 5 seconds. Now, it should be noted that this can differ. It all depends on the length of track, the quantity of turns in said track, if the races have setups available, and not all regions are created equal. For instance, the European servers, they have some of the more competitive and much quicker times that you'll find in the world. I find that E through C lobby qualification times, they tend to be comparable to the bronze time that you'll find in the time trials, the weekly time trials that Sport Mode provides. These bronze rewards are a really good gauge. So as you can see, perhaps here, that the 7% within the top time of the world is about the arena that you want to shoot for. Now, I want to say at this point that I acknowledge that this could be very different from how you approach and what you are used to when it comes to a daily race and your weekly routine. But we aren't finished yet. Hang with me. With the approach to qualifying behind us, now we look towards the races that are ahead of us. How do we prepare? First, getting ready to race on track. I would submit that you should use as many tools as needed to help you be consistent on track. Now, I don't want to assume any knowledge among my viewers. So we're going to actually start on driving assists. The truth is, when I started GT7, I knew what some of the assists did, but not all of them actually. And so we'll take a few moments here to take a look at these. So right here in settings, if you go to assist settings, you're going to see the assists that the game provides. I'm not sure why this is labeled as an assist, but you can have manual or automatic transmission. I do recommend manual because there are many cars that are a short shift. In other words, you need to shift sooner than the RPMs hit the limiter. In some cases, much sooner. Then we have traction control. I believe the game defaults at 3. You can go higher than that, 4 and 5, 2, 1, or 0. It's not a bad thing that when you're first starting the game if it's at 3, then you go ahead and leave it at 3. You will find that in places, though, this will slow you down significantly. So it really is kind of a car-by-car basis. But the important thing is that you do what's comfortable for you and what keeps you on track, what helps you to avoid those big mistakes. I like to use ABS weak. This is anti-lock brakes. Some people go with it off. That's pretty brave, but you could either do default or weak. Most people will have this on. So then these two things, active stability management and counter steering assist. So the active stability management, basically exactly what it says. It helps to stabilize the car. However, I do believe that this will slow the car down when it comes to coming out of a turn. The counter steering assist, I have it on weak myself. I leave this on even to this day as an A+ driver. What this does is it helps with the weight transfer, especially when you are losing the car and you're trying to correct it with the steering. This can aid in keeping the car straight. So these specifically are the driving assists. Now, if you are able to consistently keep the car facing forward and on track without assists, then by all means continue that route. But for most people, the majority of us that are racing, heading that route could be a real struggle. You see, what we're shooting for with our sport mode races, our daily races, is an approach that will get us consistently in the top 5, top 7. When we're doing that, we are gaining driver rating. We're gaining DR. And that is the key. Gaining DR is how you rank up in this game. Consistency on track, and avoiding the big mistakes are vital to getting those top 7 finishes. And in reality, the assists help you avoid losing control and spinning out. When you do that, you lose multiple positions. So my suggestion is, and I realize this can be, there can be differing opinions on this, but my suggestion is that you use any assists that keep you on the track. Don't be ashamed for using assists. So now we move to track assists. Technically, what we just showed was just driving assists. Now we're looking at track assists. Track assists are in the game to remind you of braking points, where the apexes are, optimal driving line, and so forth. The driving line markers and the driving line. So let's look at what that is for a moment. Please excuse the wheel noise. It's just my G923 looking for a little bit of attention. So here you can see in this right here, we have the driving line showing you what would be considered the optimal line for this. You can see I just overshot it a little bit there. So what this is proposing is the best or the optimal line for driving. Now, in reality, this does change car to car. And so you may want to consider doing different lines, different things. And you can see how that goes. Now, I don't usually use this driving line while I'm racing, but I do in fact use the driving markers, which basically help you. I'll just stop it right here. They help you with where you could be turning in. I use them as help for a brake marker as well. And then and they show you where the apex is, so you can see like this is where you want to be touching that apex. This is where you want to be tracking out. This is where you want to be diving in, hitting that apex, coming out like that. The driving line can be exceptionally helpful though when going in the wet weather. The wet weather, this will be the drying line when the track starts to dry out. And then also this would be the line to avoid when it is fully wet. That might sound a little weird, but it actually is the case. Let's go back to assists here. So we looked at that, so I'm going to take the driving line off, it's telling you, but I do use the driving markers. Okay, you have the brake indicator, and you have the braking area. So I'm going to turn both of those on for a second. Let's get up to speed so that it tells us to do something. Probably won't do anything. Okay, so there you see in the distance the braking area. And then it also tells us the word brake below. Let's go ahead and take this out here. You'll see the word brake come up just on the car on my screen. So those can be good reminders. They often are rather conservative as far when it comes to when you should be braking and also how far down you should be shifting. Now with all of these assists, it must be said that as an E through C rated driver, you can use these racing assists, you can use these driving assists, track assists. They will ultimately keep you on track and keep you facing forward, but they also will slow you down. So as you progress through the rankings, as you go from C and you get to B, you're going to notice that the lobbies are quicker, and there will come a time where you have to take yourself off of some of these assists. Now, we will cover that more as we get to strategies for B-rated lobbies and essential strategies for A-rated lobbies as well. Also, at this point, we need to find a pace that is comfortable and repeatable. What do I mean by that? Well, out of all that we learn in this particular episode, this might be one of the most important. What I see many of us do is try to put in that lightning fast lap every time we are on track, whether we're by ourselves or even while we're racing. What this leads to is overdriving the car. exceeding the limits of the car, and in many cases, exceeding the limits of the driver as well. The reality is that this type of approach leads to hitting other cars on track and even crashing all by yourself. Listen very closely. Every single one of us has a comfortable, repeatable pace. You may think yours is slow, but it is faster than you think. And when racing in an E through C rated lobby, more often than not, it will get you those top fives, those podiums, and, no joke, victories as well. So you've put the practice in, you've set a qualifying time, and you've found a comfortable, repeatable pace. Now it is time to get on track. So what is your on-track approach? So now you're getting on track for the first time for this week, and you've picked a daily race and you're going to go attack it. This is probably the first time of getting on track of what will be many races in the days to come. But what should your on-track approach be? First of all, in E through C rated lobbies, many drivers are making many mistakes. Be the person with the fewest mistakes. The person with the fewest little mistakes, and those who avoid the big mistake, will finish higher all the time. Be that person. Something that you may not know is I keep one of my accounts in the lower lobbies for streaming purposes and for live sessions to go over how to better race with others in these lower lobbies. And so here I have one of those races that I saved, and we're going to contrast the difference between the person who sat on pole at the beginning of the race and the individual who would end up winning the race. In Degna 1 and Degna 2, you can see he's struggling with controlling the car, and he ends up going right off the circuit, getting very dirty tires. So as we watch this individual go through, we're noticing a couple things. Number one, I can tell that how his gearing is, he is likely on an automatic transmission. I maybe didn't mention it earlier, but in many cases, the cars are going to be more difficult to control, especially while exiting corners, while on an automatic transmission. Turn 1 right here is going to be a menace for him, as this is the first of several times when he's going to go off course there and lose a bunch more time. Now he's in 5th, and he's just not really operating the car in a controlled fashion. He's not found a comfortable, repeatable pace. Lap 3 now, again in turn 1, struggling to keep the car on the track. Once again, getting dirty tires and almost losing the car, and then eventually going off once again. He does gain a spot here because P5 ends up quitting. But you can see going through the S's, he just has very little control. And one of the things you're noticing is he doesn't have traction control on. It seems as though for an individual at this skill level, he could be benefited with some of that. Lap 3, back to Degna 1 and Degna 2, and he's repeating the same mistake again, essentially, and going off the track once again. This time on lap 4, going through turn 1, he actually manages to keep it on. Although a little bit tentatively, but he does manage it. Now going into turn 1 again, he can't keep it on the track, gets dirty tires, goes off a little wide, and then into the barrier once again, damaging the car. We skip now to the end of lap 5, where he is fully sending it into 130R, flies off the track at an incredible rate of speed, crashes. P6 then easily goes by and gains P5 from him. And we're kind of seeing how, I don't know if this experience is something you can relate to, but, when I watch a guy like this drive, I feel like this is a bad time on track. Why would we want to be in that position? So let's compare that now to the eventual winner. Now, I don't recommend the name that he chooses, nor necessarily how he drives. In these lobbies, it's hard to find a very clean driver, so I'm not pointing him out because of that, but I'm pointing him out because he is in control of his car the entire race. He does push to pass in many occasions, and doesn't really have the awareness or the care for people around him, so the penalty system does activate because he just barrels through people. He serves that penalty here. He loses a couple positions because of that. But once again, you're going to see He has traction control on, he is using manual transmission, and he's keeping the car on track. He's able to take the hairpin a little bit better, although he does collide with the car. The ghosting system is very much more active in the C-rated lobbies and below compared to the A and A+ lobbies. Here we have another person making a mistake. P2 makes a mistake, so he takes advantage of that, and then he's right behind me. He would eventually win because, well, he does take me out at the chicane. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that he does, in fact, win the race by staying on the track and making the fewest mistakes. Now let's get to the next point. At this level, safely racing close to other cars is almost impossible. It should be avoided as much as you can. Case in point, we're going to watch another race from a C lobby, and we're going to witness the unfortunate events that this particular individual has to endure. And as he gets closer to these folks, we're seeing, you know, there's a lot of activity going on, and it's suddenly bumper cars. He gets slowed down quite a bit. People pass him. Then we're coming to this chicane. Now you see me on the left-hand side there. I'm pulling up, getting close. He taps the person in front. He gets tapped from the side. He gets hit multiple times going into the hairpin. At this level, you really want to do your best to try and stay away from other people as much as possible. That option is not always available to you, but it is the best way to go when you can. Giving yourself a little bubble of space is pretty much necessary for racing in E through C rated lobbies. You must drive with where others are in mind. Even on the last straight here, he's just being a little too close to everybody, and he ends up paying the price and going into the wall. You might say some of it is not his fault. That's true. But I would say, as part of racing strategies, there are ways to avoid this, and one of them is just give yourself enough space when possible. Now, there's many more strategies when it comes to this, and we will talk about this more in the next episode. But for now, look at this as an example of what not to do in most cases. Also, as part of your on-track approach, you need to find out what type of race the daily race is. So whether you've picked A, B, or C, you need to find out if the race that you're doing is a sprint, or is it a tire-saving race? Is it a fuel-saving race? Is it an endurance race, or is it something in between? Is there only one pit strategy for this race, or are there more options? So, how should we sum all of this up? Well, let's look at our key points to drive home. Firstly, have a routine and stick to it. If you don't have a routine, utilize the one given in this episode. If you do have one, but you find that it is lacking in some areas, then utilize some of the ideas that we have provided in this episode. Either way, take what you have seen and learned here and make it your own. Buy into it and own it. Just jumping into a daily race with no real routine, no plan, no strategy will almost always lead to bad finishes, or perhaps if you end up quitting, DNFs. Also then, set a qualifying time, but more importantly, find a pace that is comfortable and repeatable. Don't attempt to be the fastest driver on track. Be the person that makes the fewest mistakes. As we bring this episode to a close, remember, qualifying time and race pace, they are secondary at this stage of your GT7 sport mode journey. What we've looked at today should be your priorities for each week. Too often, a lot of focus and energy is placed into being as fast as you can. But when that is your goal, you actually make more mistakes and are in the end slower. I have proven time and time again that you can be slower but consistent and actually win races in E through C rated lobbies. In my streams, we have compared the winner's overall time in an A+ ranked lobby compared to the time of a C ranked lobby, and even a B ranked lobby. And those gaps, those time gaps, are vast. In a shorter daily B race, you could be as much as 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds slower per lap and get a victory. In a longer daily race C, which could be maybe about 20 minutes, you could be as much as 3 seconds slower per lap and still win. If going as fast as you can isn't the primary focus at this stage of the journey, then what is? Next time we get together, we will discuss what must be your priority if you want to advance in the next level in your racing. Until then, my friends, see you next time on Essential Racing Strategies.